Okay, good morning. So yesterday we were talking about the F's, so the F words. This is a video to expand upon that, in that the F words, the survival F words, are to bring about an understanding that our physiology acts in particular ways in certain circumstances. For example, the first survival response as a societal human being is to befriend the person, the animal, the even the object, in order to actually make it a cordial, interactional, enjoyable situation. Something that calms the system in both parties. Well, obviously, you're not going to calm the system down in a rock. Well, actually, that's not necessarily true. You probably will help to start to form a reflection from the rock that institutes some sort of interplay. I'm not just making that up. Another example is the fight situation, whereby we're trying to overcome a creature, a person, an object, in order to actually survive and maintain our homeostasis and ability to function. The flight situation is where we're running away from that creature, object, or person in order to survive and take our genes to be able to pass them on to, our, our future ancestors. The other survival responses are possibly even more problematic for the physiology if they're continued for too long. That's the freeze, where we're freezing in a situation, we're not knowing what to do, we're just staying totally still, immobilized until the danger passes. The flop is where we're feigning death. We're passing over the impression that we are actually a dead organism and we're not worthwhile eating. So again, we can survive and carry on to see another day. The fairies response is where we're just going into a slightly hallucinating, imaginative world where we're actually not going to feel pain. We're going to become numbed to pain, but filled with opioids and that drug, sort of natural drug, to help us to feel comfortable and happy and blissful and cool. But of course, that has a limited period of time in the system. When it comes out, we come out exactly as we were before. So let's put this into context as far as men's health, so the male health, as opposed to the female health. Is there any difference? Why would we actually mention men's health as opposed to women's health? What's the point? Why separate the two? Well, because the physiology is different in a male. Don't need to teach you to suck eggs on that one, I'm sure. So how exactly is it different as far as the survival responses go? Well, two particular aspects of the survival responses as far as the F words go are the fights and the flights. So the fight-flight response activates, or rather the activation of a particular part of the nervous system gets that fight-flight response going. So it's the activation of part of the autonomic nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system. Now that particular nervous system is geared up to, as we said yesterday, overcome a creature, a person, or to run away from a creature, a person. If it's an object such as, a tree about to fall down, and run away from the tree, of course. The impression that is perceived through the senses is reacted to through the activation of the nervous system, and the fight-flight is instituted. Now, why is that different in a male compared to a female? Well, it is mostly to do with the generation of receptors in the cells through the body, which there are trillions of, which take on adrenaline. So the adrenaline response, the adrenal response, which is activated by the sympathetic nervous system. So the adrenal medulla of these two organs, looking like hoods on top of the kidneys, squeeze out this adrenaline and pump it around the body. The diaphragm descends and ascends, descends and ascends, and it pumps the top of the adrenaline as we hyperventilate to spread out that adrenaline, epinephrine, through the body. Now again, why is that different in a male compared to a female? Well, there are more receptor sites for this adrenaline in males. Why is that? What's caused more of these adrenic receptors to be on the cells? Testosterone. Testosterone primarily has geared up the system to take on those receptor sites, to act as docking pads for the adrenal hormone, so the ligand in this case. It comes together and it forms a response which activates the whole system, gets the whole thing geared up. So would that actually be a problem? Well, in day-to-day society, yes, actually quite a big problem, in that if we don't want to go around bopping people on the head, or running away constantly from situations that we feel are a little bit discomforting, then we have to learn how to suppress these physiologic responses. If it's a factual, real-time situation where we have to really do something, then obviously it's very useful. But if someone is raising their voice at you, or you're finding that the crowd discomforting, are we constantly wanting to react at that level? That's the delineation point. We have to say, okay, here I do need to suppress this urge to fight. I have to suppress this urge to run. If we suppress these urges, then we are part of society. We're part of an ability to interact in a nice, gentle fashion. We're a gentle man. We're a gentle person, a gentle being, which is able to interact without causing a fray. Now, what happens when we continuously do that? If we do that again and again and again and again and again and again, what happens to our body? We'll say to the person, this person's a lovely guy, a lovely chap, really harmonious, able to, induce cordiality very easily. But he's got a very red face. He seems to be a little bit stressed. Something about him that doesn't actually feel like it's that authentically cordial. The suppression builds up, in other words. So over time, the more of this fight-flight response that we suppress and build up, causing a tightness around the pericardium, causing the diaphragm to become a little bit shunted in the descended position, causing our intestines to be a little bit less functional, causing peptic ulcers and all the sort of intestinal sort of problems that we can get with too much of a shutting off, because you don't want to have the intestines running around when you're running away from something or fighting something. Other problems could also include various tissues within the body. It's hypertension, high blood pressure, the contraction of the vasculature itself will be very needed during a fight situation, a flight situation. You will need as much blood being able to sort of squeeze into those specific areas as possible. So the covering of the heart really makes sure that that heart can beat effectively, fast. It doesn't want to be just it wants to be and so over time, if this suppression is there acting as an echo of the fight-flight really needed to carry on, this pericardium will stay tight. This diaphragm will stay slightly descended. A slight bit of air is there ready to actually utilize through the body. So it's never completely exhaled. The testicles end up a little bit ascended rather than descended. The perineum ends up a little bit tighter than usual. The prostate ends up a little bit squidged. Obviously, the more squidged the prostate is, the more chance that the inflammation that accumulates will stay stuck. So prostatitis is not a rare thing at all in males as they get older, as we get older. So this is a factual situation of the fight flight, we're actually able to perceive that there is someone that I really want to shout at, but I'm not going to. I'm going to suppress it. How about the fictional one? The fictional story that we build up. This person was such a dork. Really peed me off yesterday. What an idiot. We keep repeating it around and around in our heads often enough, and of course, bringing up the memory again and again, installing that fight flight mechanism within the physiology. Voila, we have an echo of a situation which is continuously asking for the fight flight response to repeat itself. This is a chronic problem which is going to cause the physiology to become a bit crazy, not really act in a way that is homeostatic, balanced. It's reactive. There's a reactive fight flight situation taking place in the physiology day in, day out. And after so long, the body can only take so much. The psychology is not different from the physiology in this regard. You know, it's going to affect the mind. The mind's going to affect the body. The two are not separate here. And so, okay, over time, what's this going to do? Well, the longevity of the male is not going to continue as long as the female. As far as that's concerned, it can't. How can it? You know, these structures are going to start to degrade over time. They're going to start to get, you know, I've had enough. Yeah? So let's look at the statistics there. Is it true? Does a man really, you know, live for a shorter lifespan than a woman? Well, I think it's pretty obvious to see that that is the case. It really is. There's a suppression of sorts that seems to tie into that. Now, don't for one second think that there is not a suppression basis taking place in the female system. Of course, it can happen here too. I'm generalizing, I'm putting something into it, I'm splitting things up to make it a little bit more understandable. As far as the physiology goes, the males do have a tendency to be more reactive based around the fight-flight. There's an amplification based around the fight-flight. It's more intense, generally. You only have to see that as far as the incidence of domestic violence, for example. Let's look at the statistics for a second. So let's have a look at how long a male generally tends to live in Australia these days. So the average lifespan is around about 81. Females are just over 84. That's not much of a difference, is it? Well, it is actually. You know, I mean, as far as those extra 3 years go, you can actually see there are sort of different skews on that bell shape. But yeah, it is a difference, and it is something we can actually do something about. In other countries, it might be that the difference is even more. In fact, it is in other countries. There is a significant difference in certain countries. I won't go into that now. If we went back about 100 years, let's go to 1920, we'd be looking at men living for around about 3 years less than a woman. 2.5 years less than a woman on average. Again, you know, that's not much of a difference. Well, back in those days, there would have been more motility-inducing events to a male compared to a female than there would be these days, in general. Once the age of the childbearing years is you've gone beyond that. And so, you know, back then it should be that the difference between you know, the male average age of life expectancy and the female age of life expectancy should be, in essence, quite different, big time, 100 years ago. But it's actually, they're more different now. If you went 100 years back from there, so we went to, say, about 1820, there really isn't a difference. So what's going on? We're in a place where we can see from statistics through the chronologic, obvious, glaring differences that have taken place over the ages, that we are actually, as males, becoming more susceptible to our own reactions, the reactions based on the fight-flight response. Now, as far as the freeze and the flop and the fairies response, well, actually, there is not so much of a chance for the male to get caught into reactivity there. It is actually, again, I'm generalizing, more of a female trait to get caught into the reactions there. I'm not going to go over that now because this is the Men's Health Week that we're wanting to share this stuff with. When it comes to the Women's Health Week, I think it'd be very useful to actually talk a little bit about the freeze, the flop, and the fairies. Okay, so let's get a little bit practical. Well, we'll get practical after this video. How's that? Is that okay? So, yeah, we'll just go into some of the clarification, and I'll talk more about the clarification. The clarification is, in essence, to do with understanding why you actually don't want to hurt something. The felt sense understanding, rather than it just being something because I don't want to get bad karma. If you don't want to get bad karma just here, well, that's a psychological interplay which becomes a little bit distorted from the reality of you actually feeling the intimacy of why you don't want to actually hurt something, or you don't want to, just go around just having a sexual sort of deviant sort of mind and just going to bed with everything that you feel that you can. Again, this is not going to be a useful thing for another person. And you're feeling that. You're feeling, this is actually hurting another person just here. I don't want to do that. I don't want to hurt this other person. I want to make sure that there is a sense of interaction in society where I'm, not doing these things. I'm just pointing these things out because it lays a foundation in order for us not to just be mechanical about these things. There's a reason that I actually don't want to hurt another person here. I want to be a part of society. I want to be able to feel society, be able to grow with society, have some sort of a felt sense, intimacy with society, rather than it just being something for my own gratification. And of course, just clarification around why we're not wanting to, drink too much alcohol, or actually in a way any, because it distorts and dulls the mind. And get some clarification around that. If it is that we're taking drugs, any intoxicants at all, and we find it dulls the mind, well, there's a clarification process around. Okay, I realise that the more intoxicants I take just here, the more I'm going to be vulnerable to the reactions that are based on survival responses. It might seem to dull them out for a period of time. Oh, I'm just, off with the fairies. I'm just, I'm not worried about anything just here. But, the physiology itself becomes a little bit dull on one side for being able to suppress these things, and on the other side, they become more reactive over time. Again, you only have to look into, some of the statistics based on that. So after the clarification, we go over getting into the sense, the felt sense of the body itself. So those go hand in hand, don't they? Clarification and getting a felt sense of, why we don't want to hurt something is because I'm actually feeling refreshed, rejigged, opened up. I feel my prostate glands starting to become a little bit more open. I feel my pericardium starting to relax off. I'm starting to feel my diaphragm becoming a little bit more excursive. I'm feeling my accessory breathing muscles start to taper into the sense of the rest of the body. That might sound all flowery and lovely, but once we actually get a sense of it, the whole body becomes much, much more effective. So when the real factual fight-flight is coming across, we have a very useful body to actually deal with those things. It's not worn out. Yeah, you're rejigging it, revitalizing it. So getting a felt sense of the body, and use poses for that. Poses, postures, positions that enhance certain glandular openings and muscular tissue openings and so on. Then the breath work. Breath work gets very physiologic. It goes into the physiology world. Start to get a sense of how the blood, vascular system, lymph system really interacts with the body. Beautiful work, actually. The breath work is kind of like the key door opener if it's done in the understanding of it actually not being pranayama. And again, I'll explain that as we go through some of the practical aspects. And then neurogenic release, which again I'll talk about later. the pranayama, which again I'll talk about and expand upon, just put it into context. Then the ice immersion, yeah, letting the factual fight flight come through. You're not actually imagining this ice that you're immersed in. This is a reality. The fight flight is coming to the fore, and wow, I'm feeling what my body really does in this situation without me reacting to it, without me having an object that I'm trying to destroy or run away from. I'm with it and I'm still, and I'm able to feel what my physiology really does, what it really wants to do. Very useful environment to get a sense of what your primal physiology is wishing to express, unlock, flow, bring about into a sense of scintillation. And after that, we go into a fire circle, getting a sense of the fire elements, the sharing that takes place, which has been done over eons. I mean, we're looking at a tiny little fraction of period of time where we as human beings are not actually doing that anymore. Instead, we're actually gathering around a bar with some alcohol. I'm not meaning to disparage any of that stuff, but let's talk about some of the stuff that we know instinctually as I'm talking about males at the moment, and of course females have another realm that they through the ages have really attended to, and to a degree they still do. We as males tend to not carry on with that bonding, gathering, interaction and feeling of the elements in the way that we have done through eons. That's all I'm going to say for this. This is the second video, and then everything's going to get practical. So lots of words and talking, but hopefully it's set the scene in order to expand upon practically.